Reboot It!
Hey everyone, I'm Ron Swallow, and welcome back to Reboot Rewind, the official after show for Reboot It. Today we're looking back at the episode where we tried to make Ghost Rider cool, but did we? Some of us think we did. But some of others don't think we did. This is the second recorded and the third aired episode of the season. We started off with The Godfather, which was an insane challenge, but Ghost Rider seemed to be more in the rebooted wheelhouse. Did that make going into this one a little bit easier for you guys?
Ghost Rider was more, I think, like an aesthetic than it was a character. So, of all the Marvel ones that we could have chosen, I feel like this was on the harder end of it. I don't remember how we came to this conclusion. I think we just were like, we got to do a Marvel one, and then maybe it was Ed or Bill that threw out Ghost Rider. Like, sure, why not? Let's do that one.
We got to do the new Marvel.
I mean, we were talking about how one of the things we've said before is we shouldn't try to reboot Marvel. And like one of the things Billy said on earlier rewinds, as you've seen, is just that we were like, we have to take this in a way where it's like, we try the things we said we wouldn't try. And Marvel was one of the things we said we wouldn't try. So I was glad to pop in and do this. Although we did Fantastic Four, but I think that's like some of the only Marvel we did when we weren't really.
Well, and we started with Wolverine way back in the day.
Yeah.
We've always kind of lived on the outside edges of, the Captain Americas and all those. I think with Ghost Rider, it was just like, I don't know, those two movies that had come out were just so crappy, and sometimes that helps you because there's, the world is your oyster. You can do whatever you want, but at other times it kind of sucks because they did what you hoped to do, but they did it so badly that you can't really do that again,
Look, I will go to the mat saying that Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance, the second one of those movies, visually did everything that I think a Ghost Rider movie needs to do. It had a really great aesthetic. The cinematography captured sort of the macabre body horror of a man with a flaming skull. It was very inventive. The special effects, I think, largely hold up. But going back to what Billy started the episode with, like, Ghost Rider is not much of a story. Like, it's cool, don't get me wrong. It's very cool. And the fact that those Nick Cage movies were so far removed from what the MCU is, aside from them being chronologically removed from being in the MCU, it's a little bit like a blank slate. And I think that, if anything, we struggled with that a little bit because it was like, can we actually make like an MCU flavored Ghost Rider? I don't know. And in fact, I don't think we did. Just to cut to the end of it.
Yeah, we absolutely didn't. How about you, Ed? How were you feeling about Ghost Rider when you came in?
I mean, the whole thing about it being more of an aesthetic than a character is well worn and totally true. I think what we were trying to do was, I think before it was always this invincible character versus like any sort of random thugs and any sort of CGI demons and whatnot. And I think we tried to veer far away from that and ended up trying to do sort of the A24 horror version. But then obviously I think myself and perhaps Bill pushed it into more of a like action vengeance thing with and Ron's hatred of billionaires. Me personally, I love them. I love these Smaug assholes that hoard all the wealth. It's wonderful for everybody. But Ron hates that stuff. And so he, of course, wanted to inject that stuff. But obviously,
all these guys, they support billionaires. Come after me, guys. Come after me.
So bottom line, we made it sort of his entree into like corporate America, which is, I think, one of the things that would have a lot of cognitive dissonance for an audience is him killing all these corporate people instead of thugs on the street. But what we were trying to say was maybe those people deserve killing more than somebody who needs to, sell meth to feed their mom.
I think that this episode definitely started our hot streak of turning this season a little bit into a polemic where, I think we'll get there eventually, but like at a certain point we made a joke like we got to stop just making evil billionaires the villains of every single one of the reboots. This one though, I do think it works for the reasons Ed's talking about. And me personally, I don't even know that I came into this episode with this idea fully formed, but the more that we talked about it, the more I was like, the only way Ghost Rider works is as an exploitation film. And it needs the grindhouse, not just aesthetic, but like the guts to it, like the actual grindhouse ethos of like, look, we're going to make a raw, angry, polemical movie that's just shitting all over the system. And like, I think we did that while also not making that feels like something that feels like a total 70s throwback. I think we hit a really interesting tone here. I don't know if it's A24 or not, but I liked where we ended up with the tone of this movie.
Now, Billy, you didn't, right?
No. I think yeah, I don't think there was a lot of meat on the bone. I think it turned into, I don't know, it was just like, how can we get vengeance on the billionaires? And it never for me got any further deeper than that. I came in, you come into these things and you try to not be married to an idea. It's tough because you try not to come in with an idea that you're like, I'm going to die on this hill. But at the same time, you kind of try to come in with a little bit of something to at least get the ball rolling. And I had this idea going into it. It's like, I kind of felt like Ghost Rider would be better served as like a Hulk to a different character. Make him the catalyst for someone else. And I wanted to pitch a Doctor Strange 3 where, whoever, I can't remember the name of the bad guy from the first one, the one, Dormammu. It sends essentially this Ghost Rider after Doctor Strange. And I kind of felt like that would have been more in line with, I was trying to align it with like, the whole look into your soul and see all your crimes or whatever it is. I was like, well, that's kind of a little bit aligning with the themes that the character arc that they're setting up for Stephen Strange in the MCU, which is, even when he does good, it seems like every universe that he's in, he's the problem. So what better way to confront the problems that you have with a character whose literal superpower is showing you all the bad shit you do? But I didn't, when Bill said, well, no, we're not doing anything MCU, that none of that counts. I think if we had done this episode 6, 7, 8 episodes in, I would have pushed back. It was the second episode we recorded, and I just didn't feel comfortable at that time rocking any boats or possibly making a Twilight out of it. Not saying that would have happened, but I think at that point I was just like, just let it go. You guys got this. It's not your night,
Did we do that? Did we? Because now that you mention it, I remember that we did come down with the idea that like, all right, this is, call it a special Zaslav purchase where we're now going to get this one character out of the MCU to do like a New Line Cinema style reboot. I just don't remember if that was something we discussed off air or on air. So if it was off air,
we did. It was not off air. Because I think you can go back and look at kind of the wind coming out of my sails as you're like, no, it's like Sony. They just have this one. I'm like, oh
crap.
Yeah.
Well,
now we got to make Raven.
Well, let's go ahead and let the little video speak for itself, and you can take a look at our recap for the final pitch for Ghost Rider.
We have achieved reboot. We have got an indie-influenced, down-on-his-luck Native American Danny Ketch, played by probably Dakota Beavers, possibly one of the kids from Reservation Dogs.
but he is living in the Southwest. His family has been torn apart by fentanyl. He has at least a love interest that he's grown up with, if not both a love interest and either a male or female best friend. We need to figure that out. But when he, by accident, builds into his chopper a cursed spark plug, so a cursed bolt, a cursed nut, he becomes host to the demon Zarathos. And Zarathos turns him against his will into the Ghost Rider, which he immediately decides to use to seek vengeance on those who've ruined his community by trafficking fentanyl. But that task proves to be way more complicated than he originally thinks. At some point early in the story, he tries to use his penance stare on somebody that he thinks is the worst of the worst, and it turns out they're maybe not that violent. They're maybe not that awful. And as he keeps trying to figure out who is really to blame, he's going up the chain, interacting with government officials, corporate people, gets essentially roped into a new way of thinking by a corporate love interest that we're saying is probably going to be played by Samara Weaving, someone who can try to tell him, look, this world that you're in is not this black and white. You can't just go around killing people. You need to understand that there's good and bad, but the good outweighs the bad. Until, of course, she gets penance stared and realizes, man, you are fucking up some people's lives. Along the way, he's pulled every direction as it relates to this new curse that he has, where is he going to let the demon take over? Is he going to subsume his humanity and get pushed down into the sunken place? Or is he going to take control of the Ghost Rider and make the final decision as to who gets murked and who doesn't? We don't know. We'll figure it out as we go. We've got probably Fede Alvarez, maybe the brothers Philippou, maybe Chris Nash, a good list of young hot filmmakers who could handle this weird tonal mishmash. And guys, I feel pretty good about this one. I know, Billy, this isn't your cup of tea necessarily, this type of movie, but I feel like we really made some progress here.
I would watch it. And that's all we need at the end of the day is, would you watch it? And I would.
Do you
So
still
Billy
feel
lied
that way?
right to our faces.
No, I didn't specify if I would watch it in theaters or if I would wait till it was streaming on Pluto.
I just gotta say, you've been hanging out with Doug Defense too much, buddy.
I never said that I would pay for a ticket. I think the thing too is, like, from a business standpoint, I don't think I pushed on this there, but it's like killing off all these corporate people. It's like, do you really think that anyone is going to fund this movie? Like the people that we're going to get money to make this are going to be like, get the fuck out of here. No way. Like, no.
I don't know.
think that was my other hang up.
I don't know that bumps me quite as much. I feel like movies get made all the time, especially in the indie space, about, call it radical, anti-corporate, not necessarily acts of violence, but those messages exist.
I get you, but you're also talking about whether or not we like it or not. Like, Ghost Rider is a recognizable IP for Marvel. I just don't think that, you wouldn't do this pitch with Fantastic Four, and I would put them in the same bucket of recognizability, if not total adoption by the public,
Well, I think it's the opposite. It's an opposite problem, though, real quick. Comparing it to Fantastic Four, to me, is a tiny bit specious because people at least know what they are. Now, what they are is boring AF. And a lot of people who weren't super indoctrinated to that Kirby crackle, like low-key nonsense. I love Kirby. Don't get it twisted. He's a genius. But the Fantastic Four is a proto idea. It's a cornerstone of modern comics. People know what it is. They just don't freaking like it. Ghost Rider, nobody knows what the hell it is. Nobody knows what it is. They know, like we said earlier, the aesthetic. So for me, I felt like we had to go in a direction like that because, again, going classic Fantastic Four didn't work out that great. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to talk about box office, talk about as an artistic thing. it wasn't that great. I'm sorry, you know, and they stuck to their guns and did it comic book accurate and all this jazz. If we did that, we would have the same old crap. Guy with a bike, fights demons, fights clay guys. Yuck.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Although
So I'd rather
I
we
actually
do
got to
what we
say, when
did.
Billy, yeah, I like what we did, but I also got to say, I do like Billy's idea. And I think it would have been interesting to have a discussion about it during what we were doing, because it is interesting to try to redeem the Doctor Strange, because the last one was pretty bad. So making a redeemable sequel with Ghost Rider as the sort of, I always forget what it's called when you're not quite a bad guy, but you're not quite a good guy. What's the word for that again?
Anti-hero, contact-ness, a lot of stuff.
Anti-hero. That wouldn't pop into my head.
Well,
But the anti-hero.
Yeah, like I said, though, me personally, my pushback on that, and I think even in the episode, if we wanted to run back the tape, I haven't watched it since, but I think probably what I pushed back on was like this concept of like making Ghost Rider even emptier by making him be like this Bane for fucking Doctor Strange. And I just felt like that was almost like a rebooted idea. You know what I mean? Like like as much as they wouldn't fund this corporate jazz, they would not hamstring Doctor Strange to this character. This character is less than Blade was in 1997 in regards to people like giving a crap and blah blah. I just think that they wouldn't do that. They would try to silo it in this way, and I feel as though we made a pretty decent silo. You are correct, though, Billy. It does not connect with the Marvel Universe. And frankly, one of the big misses of the pitch, in my personal opinion, is not digging into the comics just a little bit more. My only caveat to even that caveat, though, is the comics low-key suck. A lot of the stuff in the comics is so bad that us trying to like make sure that we should have emphasized Roxxon. We should have, emphasized more of that tertiary like Marvel connectivity. We should have increased that a bit. I agree with that assessment. But tying him to the Marvel Universe proper, he doesn't fit when he's in the real Marvel Universe, and he doesn't fit in movies. Just see him
throwing
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Blah.
Yeah, throwing him against Hammer or one of the other corporate guys who suck in Marvel would be all right too. Like,
plus an excuse for Sam Rockwell to come back and do a little dancing. Like, come on, that's good stuff.
And last things last, the only thing I really love about our pitch, magic against the corporate overlords. I love that. To me, I love that. That's where I live. Honestly, like, because it would seem as though in our world, you would have to be magically indestructible and on fire to get to any of these people. Luigi Mangione notwithstanding. You know what I mean? It would seem like you'd have to be some indefatigable force of nature to even mess with the oligarchy that we are under, and the pharmaceutical oligarchy that we are under in specific. So to me, that was kind of interesting to have magic trot upon that, because the law ain't going to do it. They don't let the Punisher do it. You know what I'm saying? And he does it in the comics, but he doesn't do it in movies. He's never killed a corporate anybody in a movie, and he did it all the time in the best comics. So I think I probably push for that. And then Ron's like, again, I don't want to be on a list. I love oligarchs. Glug, 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 glug on the oligarchs for me. But Ron,
Fraud time.
I got nothing to lose. It's fine.
Well, and I will say, just on the, not on the killing oligarchs tip, that is all Ron. But on the other tip about the use of magic, I think, Ed, you are dead on, because the last thing we needed to do was make a movie about Ghost Rider fighting some demons from hell. Because too often, all those comic book storylines, which don't uniformly suck, but I will say are redundant as hell. And we ran into this a little bit with our Spawn pitch. If you go back 2-3 seasons, whenever we did Spawn, when you have a hero from hell who's been cursed to live again as an instrument of vengeance, right? There's no satisfying ending to that story on its own terms. And we found that with Spawn. It's like, what are we going to do? Are we going to tell an apocalypse story and defeat hell? Are we going to banish hell from Earth? It's like it's such a big thing to do that it almost makes the idea of it being a shared universe feel irrelevant. And then by the same token, if it becomes small, if it becomes like Spawn, I'm going to get over losing my wife. It's like, is this a superhero story? What are we doing here? And so I think some of the best comic book issues of Spawn were when he stepped completely outside the realm of I got to fight these demons and fight these angels, and was more like I got to get involved in this government conspiracy and fucking go steal some guns and like, try to put things right. And I think that was what we were doing with our Ghost Rider pitch. How can we use magic to put some things right that have nothing to do with magic? I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and let me tell you, growing up in New Mexico, and I guess I probably mentioned this a little bit in the thing, is it's crazy to see how much New Mexico was changed when Walmart showed up. And I'm not advocating murking the Waltons, to be clear, but I just want to let you know that when they showed up, it ruined my state. Like places who had like decent businesses in small cities and small towns and villages and stuff like that, where like maybe they made pants for the locals, or they grew vegetables, or that sort of thing. They got literally put out of business by Walmart in the early 80s and some of the 90s, and it ruined that state, and it's ruined a lot of small states, like places like that. And Amazon's doing the same thing, and a lot of these companies have really ruined people's lives. And I think it's interesting, and it's just like what Ed was saying, like none of us have the power to change that. Voting has done nothing. Even when you vote for the people who like tend to try to stand up against corporations, they don't do a great job doing it. They just sort of do like a few piecemeal things here and there and try their best, but they got 4 years at best, and half the time the things they try to do get undone at the end of 4 years anyways. So I think that what I'm trying to say in my long-winded way is that I think something like this would like appeal to a lot of people. I think a lot of people would love to see something that kind of speaks to the pain they've all been going through that they can't always like put into words. And sure, we use the fentanyl as a thing as well, but like that half the time, half of the stuff that has come into the country has been through legal means.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
For real.
Let me seize on that really quick. Just no filibuster. I totally agree with every point that you made, and I believe that us trying to show that like you said, little places that make pants, low key, and I'm being really real with this. I don't care. I don't care about the little businesses that made $180 drones in 1995 that got put out of business by. I don't care. Because in the end, you do have your body and your choice to do something else and to try to get out of that. And I do empathize for the people who are messed up by that. But fentanyl and drugs and jazz are what low-key everybody, some kind of drug, some kind of alcohol, some kind of something, is how the working man gets through the day. I work with people who smoke cigarettes all day, drink coffee all day. They're on 100 stimulants, Adderall, all types of stuff just to get through their lives. You know what I'm saying? And like you work in a coal mine, you got black lung, you want to get nuts with some fentanyl on the weekend. And next thing you know, you're dead, or you got some crippling addiction that ruins your life. That's different than somebody taking your pants business. I'm sorry. It's more insidious. And the fact that they have so many of us, pharmaceutical companies, that is, so many of us hooked on all these substances, and they just profit and deny you treatment unless you get these drugs, and they're all in bed with each other. It's just disgusting. And if somebody wanted to like flame the shit out of them, I'd be so down with it. You know what I mean? So like I said, I'm in the bag for this. I'm in the bag maybe even more than Ron for Magic versus the pharmaceutical companies, because I just feel like we make our little documentaries about the opioid epidemic and stuff, and we act like, well, woo, good thing that's over. You know what I'm saying? We act like we're not in the midst of a continuous epidemic, a drug epidemic, opioid epidemic, deluge, siege of our country with this shit. And boy, I wish a flaming head dude would do something about it. Is all.
Well, and the other thing is, it harkens back to the original concept of superheroes, right? It's been said ad nauseum, but Action Comics #1, he threatens a governor and beats up a slumlord. Like, I think there's some value if we are living through a new version of the 20s leading up to how the 20s ended in the 1900s. There's probably some value to reconnecting with the original wish fulfillment of superheroes and bringing some of that righteous vengeance to at least the screen and the pages of our comics, if not real life. So I don't know. I don't have anything to say other than I agree with Ed and Ron.
So you guys are back on board for murking billionaires then?
Well, hey, we didn't say it.
We didn't say it. we definitely didn't say it. One thing I love Billy though for being like really honest in his assessment of what we did, because in the end it is interesting that in a writer's room you can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you know what I mean, it's just you get what you need, you know what I mean. And I think that's what we did overall, and I applaud Billy for not twilighting it or poo-pooing it too hard or whatever, because I've been disappointed in episodes before. I'm so disappointed in the Knight Rider and the G.I. Joe episodes. I just want to jump out a window. I'm a stockbroker in the 20s. I want to jump out a window when I watch those episodes, because I failed us, we failed each other, all this kind of shit. And I just don't believe that this is one of those. I don't believe that this is one of those. I do believe this is one where it's like Excalibur, Billy was hands off on Excalibur, except for the hugest addition ever to the story. You know what I mean? We all do something in these episodes, even when we're not all the way feeling it. I think that's something to be applauded in our group. Even when we're not feeling it, we don't look at the ball in disgust when it's passed to us. We try to do something with the motherfucker, you know?
That's collaboration, baby.
Yeah, tell us more, Billy.
I mean, that's what it was. Like this, just the Knight Rider. I'm so sorry, Ron. It was bad. Knight Rider was just bad. It was bad.
I haven't re-listened to it for a long time. It might actually have been bad.
It's real bad. This was not bad. It's just it doesn't speak to me. It doesn't appeal to me. Yeah. I was trying to find some angles. I think I was personally more interested in like the what does vengeance do to a person type of angle, and
you brought that up.
And I feel like it just that wasn't where the story was going at a certain point. I think we try not to keep scorecards of who contributed what, but I sitting back is like, well, as long as I make a couple points in the second half of the game, I feel like that's fine. And I think I suggested like when we had that horrible Zaslav denim thing, I was like, how about that just burns off like Two-Face and that becomes like the leather? It's and good. You like that? Okay, then I feel good about my contributions here.
100% a valuable contribution. I would even say though that the idea of like the toll of vengeance did inform some of the pitch, and we got to the point. We got to the point where it's like by the third act, he's not trying to exorcise the demon, but he's trying to see if he can control the demon. And I think that there's some metaphorical ground to seed there, right? Like the idea that you shouldn't have to just put all your righteous anger away and never act on it and say, "Ooh, that's a bad thing. I don't need it." You should be able to channel it. And like you should be able to channel it productively and not let it consume you and turn you into some kind of asocial psychopath. And I think that like literalizing that and making that struggle what the main character goes through was a great addition of dimension to this otherwise straightforward revenge plot.
It's also exactly what my therapist just recently told me.
So we're doing God's work here, guys. I mean, really.
Be your own ghostwriter, Ron.
I mean, I'm exaggerating, but it's interesting because we do have some good comments, and I think a few of the comments actually kind of hit on some of the stuff we talked about. So why don't we get to comments? What you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's start with Angie. This is a really interesting take on Ghost Rider. I'm not super familiar with the comic, but I could see some of the changes that you made dividing the fans. True. I like the idea of going after more and more powerful people. Those are the people who do the most damage. As I was watching this episode, some parts reminded me of the anime Death Note. If you've not seen it, Death Note is essentially about a high school kid who comes into possession of a notebook from a death god, which allows him to kill people. He starts out killing criminals and declares that he is justice, just like what you suggested for Ghost Rider. There's a curse associated with the power he uses, and he willingly accepts it. I of course, have seen Death Note.
I was going to say, I have not seen it, so I'm going to have to take a pass on the comparison, but I know that it's beloved.
It is. It's awesome. And it is an apt, it's a close comparison because, I mean, not a close comparison, but they're definitely, one's a golden apple and one's a red delicious or something like that. Like they're related. It's, but I think that is one of the things that I thought leading to it being what I thought was good that we did, just we talked about it a second ago, is just leading it towards it, the person having to make the decision themselves, getting to a point that they can make the decision themselves. And I guess we didn't exactly decide if that was what they were going to do. Maybe we're going to do 3 Ghost Riders or something, and at the end he gets to that, although that seems a bit much. But still, I like the idea of the person having to make the decision for themselves about how they, if they can create a balance or not.
So. Well, I think to that point, like I could easily see this movie ending the exact same way as The Dark Knight ended, motorcycle and all, where it's like he decides to embrace being the Ghost Rider. He finds some sort of balance for himself, but that doesn't make him not a criminal, and that doesn't make him not hunted by anybody and everybody with some stake in the carnage that he wreaks. And so that, gives you fertile ground to explore in a sequel, which is still following down that path of like, what does the idea of appointing yourself judge, jury, and executioner do to you and do to the society around you?
And one thing I think is lacking in the pitch, if I'm going to put my "you suck" hat on, one of the things they always do in there is introduce a supernatural villain that can harm the Ghost Rider. We neglected to do that on purpose because we wanted him to be an inexorable force. There wasn't going to be some shaman that shows up with some feathers and messes him up with some incantation. That would be stupid. However, to make it commercially successful, we would definitely have to do that. In the rewrites, they would make us have a corporate dude go down to the ghetto or whatever and talk to somebody throwing bones on the ground, and figure out something how to mess with the Ghost Rider. That would happen.
I could totally actually see a studio note being that like the top corporate whatever that you get has always been like a demon.
Right. Because he's using
that feels like
powers
such a studio note. Yeah,
dude, and you know what it would turn into? Low key, if we're the real Reboot It crew, we just flip it and it becomes this devil's advocate type thing. Right? The top guy in a corporate place has all his fingers in all these pies. He knows Trump and Giuliani and everybody, and they just know him as, John Milton or whatever. But he is the devil, and he's doing devil shit, as Brad Pitt said in Once Upon a Time.
It's Mephisto.
You mentioned Roxxon. Wasn't that ultimately the plot, like behind Roxxon in the comics, was that they were operated by the Hand, and like the head of the Hand is the Beast. He actually is like an old totemic demon of some kind.
I think that happened in Immortal Hulk at one point. The Roxxon company was taken over by like a bull that talked, and nobody said anything about it because like he was a demon dude and nobody could do anything about it. He's like a minotaur in a suit. I love Immortal Hulk.
All right, shout out. So there's some precedent there that we could play with for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Let's get to another one. We got Dracoon. At one point, Billy Business called the demon Xanadu.
Rosebud.
Xanadu. Okay. And I just had this thought of you guys trying to turn it into a musical with a pair of cursed roller skates. Wrong. Roller blades, but okay. Also, fun fact, in some version, Ghost Rider counts as both a demon of vengeance and an angel of justice. A fun scene that could exist is that a victim tries to defend themselves, assuming Ghost Rider is a Native American spirit, only to fail. Then another victim immediately starts saying a prayer, expecting that to work, only to have Ghost Rider finish the prayer for them and kill them both. Bonus points if the prayer is specifically for exorcism or demon hunting.
I don't know if I totally follow it, but I don't know if I totally follow the idea that, and maybe I just didn't read these comics, that Ghost Rider is a demon of vengeance and an angel of justice at the same time. So there's two demons or two supernatural creatures inside the Ghost Rider. I don't. All right.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. That's out of my knowledge range, and I'm not going to Google it right now.
Could be a funny comedy beat, though. You know, if someone's trying to do like an exorcism on the Ghost Rider, you know, might be too silly for the story that was pitched, though. But
strikes me as a little bit of Venom turd in the wind scene. But anyway,
I was thinking more of like when Jonah Hill is possessed and this is the end, you know. Oh, it possesses you. Oh, it does. You know, that one.
Yeah, I think you know what? If we were given that note and we had to have an exorcism scene, I would straight up have Homeboy go, like, maybe one of his pals is Catholic, you know, maybe a Latin American person who's super Catholic or something. I don't know, spitballing here, as his best friend or whatever. Like, yo, my grandma knows about blah blah, and he gets like an exorcism, but like the priest that comes is fucking evil. And so like when he penance stares the priest like dies or folds up like an origami napkin or some shit like that. And it's like, Zarathos don't give a fuck, bro. He does not respect that bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Not that Catholicism is all the way bullshit. I'm just saying he doesn't respect that bullshit. Like one of the greatest tricks that the Exorcist ever did, and I believe Quentin Tarantino said it. So he said, what's interesting about the Exorcist is the trick it pulls off is not that the devil is real, but that if the devil was real, Catholicism is the answer. If you just do the right rites and you can stop the bitch from floating and putting stuff in her, you know, and spitting green tea soup over everybody. If you just do these rituals, you can stop that. In our movie, fuck that shit. I don't respect that shit at all, especially if you were evil, try to represent God on earth. You're getting it worse than anybody. I think that'd be very powerful in our movie if we had to do that scene.
That would
totally
be awesome.
agree with that.
I mean,
yeah,
I'm in for that. Taking out corporations and religion. What am I? What are you writing a thing for,
dude,
Ron Swallow?
Dude,
specifically? Come on.
Dude, I'm literally glad that you're not standing up, because it'd be obscene what the people would see. The wicked boner on Ron Swallow Corporation.
A murder boner? The most potent kind of boner?
Hey, that's a new series on Apple Plus. Murder boner. It's just a bunch of monologues from Ron's boner.
Well, I too, in my roles of I don't know why it was British.
Why does your boner talk like that, too? Yeah. You got an expat boner? All right, anyway.
And forsooth, the one who was greedy. Okay. Well, let's get to another comment. We got Jessic 6876. This was an odd pitch. Okay, fine. Hurtful. But I'd probably still watch this as a movie. Okay, better. As a fan of the character or the iconography, as y'all mentioned, all I really need from a Ghost Rider movie is a 90-minute action horror film with a metal soundtrack and a Grimehouse feel. I'm glad Ed brought up The Crow, because that's all I was thinking of up until that point. I also had Jacob Tremblay in mind for the role up until Bill brought up Dakota Beavers. I really dig the idea of Ghost Rider being Native American. I'm surprised no one brought up Andy Serkis for the director role either. This type of story seems up his alley. Anyway, fun episode as always. Looking forward to next week's. And P.S. As a Latino, Robbie Reyes driving a lowrider and being a car mechanic is both stereotypical and empowering.
Why not do both, you know?
Yeah, we got a couple of comments that were talking about he doesn't really drive a lowrider. He drives a fucking a super fresh Mustang or like a Barracuda or something like
Charger.
Fast and the Furious Charger, whatever. And I'm just thinking, lowrider would rock. Lowrider would rock so hard.
Fucking
It's like
sparks coming
bouncing,
out the back.
dude. It's bouncing on
And
all the
flames.
evil dudes. Come on, man. It's like West Coast Customs. Hey, dog. We here to pimp. We're here to pimp your ride. We heard you like fire, so we set your wheels on fire.
I'm just thinking the demon Zarathos, played by Exhibit. Like, come on.
Yo, I hear you like corporate malfeasance. Well, I brought you vengeance.
Oh. The only other thing I'll say to that comment is Andy Serkis is in director jail after Venom Let There Be Carnage. So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
That motherfucker gonna have to get out like
gonna
Shawshank
say, yeah.
Redemption with a spoon from director jail.
Well, he's directing the next Lord of the Rings Gollum thing, so
Yeah, he gets
Yes,
grandfathered in for that, though.
Oh,
yeah.
Definitely.
And let me say, Jesse, we did hit on like the problem with the iconography, which, by the way, I do think the coolest thing about Ghost Rider is he is a skull on fire, leather jacket wearing spikes, metal spikes to the sky looking character. But that's the coolest part about it is how he looks. And we talked about it enough, I think, but like, I just don't think it would work anymore. Like, I don't know, we're going to get White Zombie, maybe a little Mastodon in there, and then just have him murking people with his eyeballs and with a fiery chain. I guess there's some fun to that. Don't get me wrong. Like I get it. But it's also 90s fun. You know what I mean? Like, and
see our Greatest Pod episode about goth pop culture and how it sort of has died.
Yeah. So there you go. Billy, any opinion about that?
No,
No,
I
that's
don't.
it.
The Barry Gibb talk show.
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
Perfect. Moving on. Let's get on to this next comment. We got from Hello, Mr. Jamwa. Ghost Rider is a paradox because he's a super serious character who looks metal, but the trappings are campy as heck. I think you guys found a way to navigate this and came up with a great fresh take that doesn't feel divorced from the spirit of the property. I'd watch this in a heartbeat, and I'm pretty much done with Marvel.
That's interesting. I mean, theoretically, that's the exact type of viewer that we would want to bring in with this pitch. So that's a nice endorsement. I appreciate that.
Hey, yeah, well, some of my favorite comments are when you give us compliments. Huge fan.
But the specific circumstances around the compliment, I think, are particularly good in this one, because that idea that, like, man, I'm sick of Marvel, or maybe even I'm getting sick of superhero movies, but you guys just pitched something that I would get really excited about. Like, that's meaningful, because we are in this era where it's like, damn, what can we do with these properties that doesn't feel same old, that doesn't feel like we're retreading ground that people are getting sick of. So, hopefully we can continue to do that.
I think that's why I didn't push as hard against it, because it's like, well, the argument being like, if you're gonna do something that's not the MCU, do something that's not at the MCU. And I think the story ultimately goes there. Whether or not it's to my liking is irrelevant. I think the good thing about this is, like, yeah, I think it could potentially open up to people who are done with Marvel, and it seems like a lot of people are.
Definitely some people moving in that direction for sure. Let's hit on another comment. We got Steven FS3FW. Steven, if you're listening, tell me what that means. I'm so curious. I think this is a good and interesting story, but I don't think it's a comic book Ghost Rider. I feel like if you change the names from official Marvel characters to something else, it would be a good movie where fans would pick up on the influence and constantly pitch the director for making the official MCU Ghost Rider on Twitter and Reddit. Okay. To which Ed responded, there's a lot of responses. I'm going to read them all. All right. To which Ed responded, I think they tried to do what's in the comic and it hasn't captured the Midnight Suns or 90s Ghost Rider at all. So my logic is that if we just did this character from the comic right, it would still look like the bad ones. To me, we literally had to do something different from motorcycle murderer who never really kills anybody and punches CGI demons or Crank 2 Mega Killer. I think the audience for the comic saw two things that resembled their remembrance of the comic and rejected them. So to me, we had to do something different. To which Billy responded to Ed, I don't know if I 100% agree with this. We saw one bad movie and its sequel. I agree that it hasn't been done well in live action, but I think, and just my opinion, we could have injected a little more of the comics into the pitch, even if it was taking those comic elements and remixing them. I like one of the posters ideas about the company being Roxxon. Touches that, and we completely ignored it. To which Ed finally responded, hell yeah, I love the Roxxon jazz, but Ghost Rider to me is one of those characters that low-key needs to be in his own universe like Punisher or Frankie Blade. Or
Frankie Blade.
Frankie
Frankie
Blade.
I was like, who is Frankie Blade?
Frankie Blade told me to get my shine box, so I killed him.
That exchange was essentially this rewind in a nutshell. So, God, you could have just read the comments.
Right, probably. I just think like the point I was trying to make was like, and granted, I was responding to a very small comment of Ed's without getting the full context, but it just felt like a little bit of like throwing the baby with the bathwater, right? It's like, well, they tried it and it was terrible, so we can't. It's like, well, your sample size is one bad movie and its sequel that at least one of the four of us liked. So, it's like, I don't think that we have to. I just didn't feel like we needed to completely abandon making this comic booky, but that's the route we chose. So that's what it was. Like, I just disagreed with the logic behind why we went the way we went, but there you go.
I mean, we could have done some Roxxon, Hammer, a few other like corporate interest shit. We could have Tony Stark,
but not
in
even
there,
just.
or
I guess like to me, it was like not even just Easter eggs, because you can toss 55 of those into post production. I think it was just like even the way we were talking about it, like aesthetically, spiritually, tonally, like it was like comic book. No, this is something different. And it was like, okay, but we all agree that the coolest fucking part of this, or of Ghost Rider, were those action figures and comic book covers that we walked past in the 90s. Like, it just felt like we said the Nicolas Cage ones suck, so we got to go. They zigged, so now we got to zag. And it's like, we didn't even talk about like, well, could we just zig a little better than they did? Like, that was off the table at the beginning. I guess that was my only, comment to that. Not saying Ed was wrong. I guess that was just my take,
Got a good point.
The elephant in the room with all this, though, is the fact that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. also did an extended Ghost Rider arc with the Robbie Reyes version. I didn't watch it, but the impression that I got was that it was also lackluster while trying to be quite faithful to the comics.
But again, like, that's not fair, because by that point, there's so many politics with Perlmutter and Feige that anything that happened on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., like, it's a miracle they even made it to air every week. Like, to say that was a legitimate swing, I don't think is fair. I think they got sent to the plate and told to bunt, and that's
I agree with that.
Could do,
I agree with that on that area. And I think also, like, one of the things we talked about, sure, we think the costume is cheesy, but what if when he wasn't, what if the times he went full, Ghost Rider, like, he got the weird costume because it's a demon. Like, it's not as weird when it turns into, like, sure, if it's him just dressing like that and then he turns into his skull and that's like who that dude is, and now he's just a fiery skull with the same jacket that he always wears. Like, sure, that becomes pretty cheesy. But like, if
Well,
somehow
allow
he's
me-
transformed,
Allow me to talk out of the other side of my mouth now.
Okay, let's
Once
hear
we
it.
did commit to the place we went, the part that I actually loved the most was this idea that
the melting.
by the end he becomes what we recognize as Ghost Rider because just all the humanity is literally melted off. I was like, well, I like that. So it's like, if we're gonna do what we did, then I like that choice better, you know?
Okay, but what? Okay, hear me out. What if he had just a chain wallet?
We just need some chains in there. We just need some. I get it. I
One
get it.
chain.
I
just
mean,
one chain.
Big pants
Yeah.
and a chain wallet and rollerblades.
But
Hear me
personally, I as far as costuming, I don't know, man. Again, like I said, this isn't one of my favorite rewinds by a sight, but the costuming I thought was really fresh. The stupid ass little idea about the denim and like burnt denim has a whole different aesthetic, and it's more like,
That's
like
true.
a kid that wears Canadian tuxedos or native versions of Canadian tuxedos type of stuff, and it gets burnt, and it's like, that's so fresh to me, because I disagree with Ron that if I'm rocking some shorts, if I'm rocking some jorts and some Air Maxes, and I'm roller skating around my neighborhood with my butt out, and then the demon jumps on me and I got a leather jacket and some pants. Does the devil work at Hot Topic? You know what I mean? I don't understand how.
I mean,
that
if you ask my
aesthetic would jump
grandma,
on you, yeah, yeah, this blue-haired lady wouldn't sell me a dirty calendar. But like, I just feel like, yeah, like I said, I thought the costuming was great on our part, and I liked what Billy said about the burning off of the blah blah. I thought that part was dope because honestly, that's the leather jacket and the gray pants and the stupid boots with one of them has spikes. Like, stop it. So dumb. That's so dumb. It looks so fresh when Mark Teixeira draws it, and Javier Saltares and people of that nature, Eddie Kubert even. And I don't mean to say it like that.
By the way, can I just tell you real quick? When I was editing this episode, and you made a joke about how dumb Ghost Rider was. He's like, he's out there flipping hamburgers for kids. I was like, what am I going to show for B-roll? We talk about this. You have no idea how easy it was to immediately find the photo of Ghost Rider flipping hamburgers for kids. It was the fastest I've ever found one of those gags ever.
I know. I'm telling you, I say a lot of nonsense, but it's not all nonsense. I do have these cultural memories that pop out in the monologues.
that's hilarious because I thought that was just you being funny, like Ed funny, but it was you pulling out some facts from a comic. That's hilarious. Well, I think that's all the comments. Does anybody want to say anything else? Like, do you need any other things that pop into your brain that you really want to talk about from the remembrance of the thing? Oh, I actually have a small one. I like that we had the did we end up deciding that the cursed object was like a motorcycle part that he had found?
It was a
isn't that what we
headlight.
did?
I think at the very, very end we said it was the headlight of the.
I liked that. I really liked that idea because it's something that like somebody who's like living in a poor area will like, you'll find stuff to like make do. And I love the idea that he found this thing to make do and like get like creative to keep his life moving along, and it like backfires on him. But also helps him at the same time. You know what I mean? Like I really like that part. So that's one thing I want to mention.
My last words on it would be this: the conception that siloing certain characters off into their own basically sub universes within the Marvel universe, the idea that that's like somehow bad or messes with corporate synergy, to me is specious, and we're finding that out with how interconnected things are, and it doesn't matter. Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four are connected. What does it matter to either property? What does it matter? It doesn't matter at all. It's a gossamer wing. It's a spider web connecting these things, not steel cables. It's ridiculous. And I do believe that more blades, less Eternals, more blades, less promising us a Blade who would do what? Hang out with Spider-Man? And some goofy Punisher gets in a van and fights Blade, and then he goes and fights the Hulk. Stop it. there's so much nonsense about to come down the pike with them trying to make stuff connected. It's going to look stupid. Punisher's going to look like Batman and Justice League, the Zack Snyder verse. He's just going to jump around and get thrown around and suck. And if he doesn't, it's going to be stupid. A lot of these characters need to be in their own universes. Damn it. I'm sorry, Ed Rant, whatever. Put them in their own universes. Damn it. If they can be the apotheosis of what they are, rather than being Ghost Rider riding in a shield elevator, Ghost Rider in an elevator. Stop the madness, dude. Stop it. It's stupid. He's not a guy. He doesn't go up the escalator to do stuff. He rides his bike up there. He jumps through your world on his bike. You know what I mean? He's a mythic figure. He doesn't take elevators. He doesn't. All of this stuff that they do on TV with the Ghost Rider, that sucked. And I don't care that they were handed a bad hand. A pair of twos, you could do better than that. Bluff, for Christ's sake. I hated that. And I hated how they tried to put him in the sci-fi universe, and he just looked stupid. Us siloing him was smart. It's my final word on it. And if Marvel did more siloing of characters, they'd have more characters that are profitable in their own franchises instead of trying to jam them up our asses in these other franchises in ways that are incongruous and suck. That's my final word on it.
And if I can just have an even shorter final word, I will just say, you take this pitch and you turn Danny Ketch into Jim Corrigan, James Gunn, call us. We got a Spectre movie because you are siloing characters off. So let's do Spirit of Vengeance in the other universe. Let's do it, baby.
Absolutely. And I'm sure he watches. So, on behalf of Ed, producer Bill, Billy Business, that does it for our Reboot Rewind. We just want to thank you guys for watching and being part of this really special community we built here. We'll see you next week. And this is your reminder that we're the coolest ever. Push that notification bell, subscribe. You know you love us, guys. Share with your friends. We're going to talk to you next time.